On June 7, 1981, 8 Israeli F-16s, escorted by 6 F-15s, raced across hostile skies toward a single high-value target, the Osirak nuclear reactor near Baghdad. The mission was shrouded in secrecy, with every detail meticulously planned. The pilots knew that failure was not an option. The fate of their nation, and perhaps the entire region, hung in the balance. Their mission, Operation Opera, was a high-stakes gamble, Israel's answer to the looming threat of a nuclear-armed Iraq under Saddam Hussein. The operation was the culmination of months of intelligence gathering, heated debates among Israel's leaders, and intense international pressure to hold back. The pilots flew dangerously low, hugging the desert floor to avoid detection by enemy radar. Every second in hostile airspace increased the risk of interception by Iraqi defenses. They relied on their training, nerves of steel, and the element of surprise. Months of secret training led to this moment. Pilots rehearsed the mission over and over, memorizing every maneuver, every contingency. The operation demanded absolute precision and teamwork. Failure meant disaster, not just for Israel, but for the entire Middle East. If the mission failed, Iraq's nuclear program could accelerate, and the region would be plunged into a new era of uncertainty and fear. The attack was timed for a Sunday, when foreign technicians would be absent, minimizing civilian casualties. Every effort was made to avoid unnecessary loss of life, reflecting the gravity and responsibility of the mission. In under 2 minutes, the reactor was reduced to rubble. The pilots executed their attack runs with flawless coordination, unleashing their payloads with devastating effect. The bombs struck with surgical precision, destroying the reactor's core and halting Iraq's nuclear ambitions in their tracks. The mission's success was a testament to the pilot's skill and the planner's foresight. All aircraft returned safely, a stunning feat for such a perilous operation. The pilots were greeted as heroes, their relief and pride evident as they touched down on home soil. The world awoke to the news, and the political fallout was immediate and fierce. Israel faced condemnation and praise in equal measure, as leaders around the globe debated the legality and necessity of the strike. Israel had acted alone, rewriting the rules of preemptive defense. The operation set a precedent, showing that a small nation could take bold action to protect itself, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The consequences would echo for decades, shaping the region's security landscape and forever altering the world's understanding of what a determined nation could achieve in the face of existential threats. To truly grasp Israel's actions, you must first understand Saddam Hussein, a dictator whose hunger for power and regional dominance shaped the fate of the Middle East. Saddam was not just a ruler, he was a man driven by grand ambitions, determined to place Iraq at the very center of Arab strength and influence. Saddam's vision was clear. Iraq would become the Arab world's unrivaled superpower, armed with the ultimate weapon, a nuclear bomb. He believed that possessing nuclear capability would cement his legacy and intimidate his rivals, both near and far. To achieve this, Saddam funneled Iraq's vast oil wealth into an ambitious nuclear program. The centerpiece was the Osirak reactor, which he named Tammuz 1, a symbol of Ba'athist pride and technological progress, meant to showcase Iraq's rise on the world stage. Israel watched these developments with mounting alarm. Their intelligence agencies tracked every move, convinced that the Osirak reactor could soon produce weapons-grade plutonium, shifting the region's fragile balance. For Israel, the threat was not abstract, it was existential. Saddam's fiery rhetoric left no doubt. If he acquired the bomb, he would not hesitate to use it against his enemies, especially Israel. A nuclear-armed Iraq would dramatically shift the balance of power in the Middle East, emboldening Saddam and placing Israel's very survival in jeopardy. The stakes could not have been higher. Intelligence reports confirmed the reactor's potential for weaponization. Every new piece of evidence heightened Israel's sense of urgency. Israel's leaders saw a ticking clock, a nightmare scenario unfolding before their eyes, one they simply could not allow to become reality. The world hesitated, caught in diplomatic debates and uncertainty. But for Israel, hesitation was a luxury they could not afford. The stakes were stark, survival or annihilation. For Israel, the choice was clear: act now, or face an unthinkable future. Saddam's nuclear quest was fueled by international deals, most notably with France. In 1976, France sold Iraq the Osirak reactor and highly enriched uranium, insisting it was for peaceful purposes. Israel was unconvinced. Why would oil-rich Iraq need nuclear energy? The reactor's design was ideal for producing plutonium, the key to nuclear weapons. France dismissed Israeli concerns, prioritizing business and diplomacy. The uranium supplied was weapons-grade, raising red flags in Tel Aviv. Saddam's open hostility toward Israel only heightened fears. The combination of French technology, Iraqi ambition, and weapons-grade fuel was a nightmare scenario. Diplomacy failed to halt the project. Israel realized it might have to act alone. With the world ignoring the threat, Prime Minister Menachem Begin introduced the Begin Doctrine. Israel would never allow a hostile neighbor to acquire nuclear weapons. This was a radical shift, preemptive action, not just deterrence. Begin, shaped by history and survival, believed waiting was not an option. The doctrine justified striking first to prevent existential threats. Critics called it reckless, but for Israel, the alternative was unthinkable. Operation Opera became the doctrine's first real test. The strike was framed as self-defense, not aggression. Begin saw it as a moral and strategic necessity. The Begin Doctrine would shape Israeli policy for decades. When survival is at stake, Israel would write its own rules. Before the jets flew, Mossad waged a shadow war against Iraq's nuclear ambitions. Sabotage, intimidation, and assassination became tools to delay the Osirak project. In 1979, Mossad agents bombed reactor cores in France, setting Iraq back months. Key scientists met mysterious ends, including Yahya el-Mashad, bludgeoned in Paris. Psychological warfare targeted European technicians, scaring off vital expertise. Offices of suppliers were bombed, disrupting the flow of parts. These covert actions delayed Saddam's program, but couldn't stop it. The clock kept ticking. Ultimately, Mossad's efforts bought time, but not a solution. While Mossad sabotaged from the shadows, Israel's leaders pleaded with France, the US, and Italy to halt Iraq's nuclear program. Their warnings fell on deaf ears. Economic interests and regional politics took precedence. The US urged caution, unwilling to jeopardize Arab alliances. Intelligence showed the reactor was nearly operational. Once fueled, a strike risked radioactive disaster. Begin faced a closing window strike now, or risk catastrophe. Cabinet debates were tense. Some feared the risks, but Begin was resolute. Mossad's delays had bought precious time, but not a solution. With diplomacy dead, Begin gave the final order. Operation Opera was set in motion. Israel would act, alone, if necessary. The Israeli Air Force faced a daunting task: strike a target 1,600 kilometers away, deep in enemy territory. F-16s, escorted by F-15s, would fly low to evade radar, using external fuel tanks for the long journey. Every detail was planned: flight paths, deception tactics, and fuel conservation. Pilots trained relentlessly, rehearsing on mock-ups in the Negev desert. They practiced nap-of-the-earth flying, pop-up bombing runs, and high-speed escapes. Deception included mimicking commercial flights and using fake radio chatter. Only the best pilots were chosen, including future astronaut Ilan Ramon. The mission demanded perfection. There would be no second chance. Months of secrecy and preparation led to a single, high-risk shot. Success, or failure, would change history. At 18:35 on June 7, 1981, the Israeli squadron reached Baghdad. Surprise was total. Iraqi defenses were unprepared. The F-16s executed their attack flawlessly. Bombs penetrated the reactor dome, detonating inside. In under 2 minutes, the reactor was obliterated. Saddam's nuclear dream in ruins. All Israeli jets made it home safely, a near-miraculous outcome. The mission was a textbook example of precision and daring. Tragically, 10 Iraqi soldiers and 1 French engineer died in the raid. The world's reaction would be swift and severe. For Israel, relief and vindication, an existential threat had been eliminated. The fallout, however, was just beginning. The world erupted in condemnation. Israel was accused of aggression and violating international law. Across capitals, leaders voiced outrage, and the media broadcast images of protests and emergency meetings. The operation was seen by many as a dangerous precedent, raising fears about the use of force to resolve international disputes. The UN Security Council and General Assembly swiftly passed resolutions denouncing the strike, calling it a grave violation of sovereignty. Diplomats from around the globe demanded accountability and urged restraint, warning of escalating tensions in an already volatile region. Even the United States, Israel's closest ally, suspended arms deliveries and criticized Israel publicly. American officials expressed deep concern, emphasizing the importance of international norms and the risks of unilateral military action. Israel became a diplomatic outcast, isolated even from its allies. Its representatives faced cold receptions at international forums, and the country's actions were debated in parliaments and newsrooms worldwide. Yet, a decade later during the Gulf War, U.S. leaders privately acknowledged the raid may have prevented a nuclear-armed Saddam. Some officials admitted that in hindsight, the controversial strike had removed a grave threat before it could materialize. The debate endures: was Operation Opera reckless aggression or necessary self-defense? Scholars, politicians, and military experts continue to argue over its legality, morality, and long-term impact on global security. Some argue it delayed Iraq's nuclear ambitions. Others say it drove them underground, making future threats harder to detect. The operation forced a rethinking of how nations pursue and conceal weapons programs. The strike remains a case study in preemption, morality, and survival. It is taught in military academies and ethics classes, sparking questions about the balance between national security and international law. The Begin Doctrine's legacy is still felt in Israeli policy today. Israel's willingness to act alone, if necessary, continues to shape its defense strategy and its approach to existential threats. History's verdict is complex, but the world was forever changed that day. The echoes of Operation Opera still influence debates on security, sovereignty, and the difficult choices nations face in a dangerous world.